Shame is often confused with accountability. People believe that feeling ashamed will push them to improve, that if they sit with the discomfort long enough, it will eventually turn into motivation. But psychologically, shame doesn't motivate. It constricts. When shame appears, the mind doesn't move toward action. It turns inward. Attention shifts from the task to the self, how you might be seen, how you might be judged, what failure would say about you. Change begins to feel dangerous. Shame doesn't focus on behavior. It focuses on identity. It doesn't say, "This didn't work." It says, "This says something about who you are." That shift is heavy, because now effort isn't just effort, it's exposure. Trying again means risking confirmation of something painful. So the system protects itself, not by giving up, but by avoiding situations where shame could grow. Progress slows, not because you don't care, but because caring now feels unsafe. When shame is present, small actions feel large. Minor mistakes feel defining. The mind overestimates consequences and underestimates resilience. So even simple steps begin to feel overwhelming. This creates hesitation, not because the task is difficult, but because the emotional cost feels high. The system isn't resisting the task, it's resisting the feeling attached to the task. Avoidance quietly becomes the safest option. Shame doesn't just affect the present. It changes how the future is imagined. When shame is active, success becomes hard to picture. Effort is imagined ending in exposure, in disappointment, in confirmation of failure. So the future feels narrow, not full of possibility, but full of risk. Planning feels heavy. Goals feel distant. Momentum feels unreachable. Not because the path is unclear, but because the emotional weight blocks vision. The system isn't asking, "How do I move forward?" It's asking, "How do I avoid feeling worse?" Shame often persists because it feels corrective. People fear that without it they would lose standards. They worry that releasing shame means accepting failure, but shame doesn't create standards. It creates fear, and fear doesn't guide improvement. It restricts it. This is why people can live with shame for years and still feel unable to change. The emotion feels active, but it quietly freezes movement. Shame blocks change, not because it's intense, but because it makes effort feel unsafe. Progress begins when action is separated from identity. When mistakes stop feeling like exposure and start feeling survivable. This doesn't require confidence. It doesn't require self-belief. It requires one shift, reducing the emotional threat attached to trying. When shame loosens its grip, capacity returns, and when capacity returns, movement becomes possible again, not through pressure, but through safety. Shame blocks change, not because it's intense, but because it makes effort feel unsafe. Progress begins when action is separated from identity, when mistakes stop feeling like exposure and start feeling survivable. This doesn't require confidence. It doesn't require self-belief. It requires one shift, reducing the emotional threat attached to trying. When shame loosens its grip, capacity returns, and when capacity returns, movement becomes possible again, not through pressure, but through safety.